Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
How's everybody doing?
Hi, hey everybody.
So each period that I close with Beethoven's early, middle, and late periods, you know, the shows are structured where I end each period with complete works. And as we were just saying, that I think it's really, really important to hear the works as full entities, as the composers conceived of them. I think it's very important. And it's hard to do that, especially, you know, with Beethoven, you know, with the earlier works, it's, you know, they're somewhat shorter than in general terms with the later works. So, you know, you can only fit, even so, you can only fit 2 pieces on an hour show. So in choosing these pieces, I really wanted to select 2 works that were very important in this early period. The first being the Sonata, the 7th Sonata, Opus 10, number 3, which is really his first masterpiece for piano, for solo piano repertoire. And then the String Quartet, which is a little less evident in 18, number 3, that was actually the very first quartet that he wrote. Even though that it's number 3, we had spoken about that Schapenzig had recommended him changing the numbers of the Opus 18 quartets, and the number 3 comes first. So that's really why I wanted to focus on these 2 works. But the Opus 10 number 3 is, I mean, more so than the 18 number 3 quartet, is a major work of Beethoven. It is it's, as I just said, considered to be to be the first real masterpiece for piano sonatas of his repertoire. And interestingly enough, when it was published for the harpsichord or for the forte piano. And that had nothing to do with Beethoven's wishes. That had to do with a publisher trying to sell music. This was a piano work. And his student, Carl Czerny, called it a grand and magnificent piece. And it's really again, it's a third of a set of 3. And as we talked about with the piano trios, the third of the set being the most significant work of the set of 3. And this is true in Opus 10. I have a small passage from Jan Swafford that I'd like to read about this sonata. And he's talking in the context of the 3 sonatas of Opus 10. He says, then comes the stunning D major number 3 in the set, the finest sonata and one of the most individual works he had produced yet. The progress of its 4 movements echoes the expressive shape of the previous 2, but the comedy in the first and last movements is ratcheted higher, framing an unforgettable song of sorrow in the slow movement.
And it's behind us.
So it's really tonight. I mean, you know, it was the first piece that we heard of the show, and we'll get back to the movement specifically. But the slow movement of the Opus 10 number 3 is the real heart and soul of this quartet, of this piano sonata. It's the first time where Beethoven expresses tragedy in his slow movement in all of his works. It's marked largo e mesto. And can somebody tell me what that means?
Largo, but dignified.
Not quite dignified.
No.
Slow and sad.
Slow and sad.
Okay.
Slow and sad. You'll recall that when we covered the Brahms horn trio, that the slow movement of the horn trio was also marked mesto, adagio mesto in that case. So he marks it in the tempo marking sad, that it's tragic and sad. And Bronfman, I mean, what did you think of Bronfman's performance of this piece?
It's great, as always.
Terrific, absolutely wonderful. I just make a comment, if you don't mind, about the performances, because you were saying before about the importance of listening to the whole piece. The Bronfman grabbed me right away. It's just masterful playing and revelatory playing. When I was listening to the quartet, I'm very familiar with the quartet, but for the first movement or so, it wasn't grabbing me. I was saying I wasn't learning anything from it. But as it moved on, it grabbed me more and more and more. And then I realized what the Belchea was. They really are masters. It was, by the time it got to the end, I was completely captured by it.
And that's okay. I don't want to be in this situation where we're here every Monday night and you telling me how wonderful the performances are. I really want your honest opinions about what you feel about what you're hearing. Not everything is so great all the time. And I can say, David, that maybe that it took them a while to get into it, that this was the first piece on the program. And I would agree that maybe the first movement was okay, but I mean, it really, came to it. And the Belcha, they're a great quartet. No matter what, day of the performance is or whatever, they're a remarkable quartet.
And back to the Bronfman, I said earlier before all the people joined, he owns that sonata. And what I agree with, the second movement is the most stunning, I think. There's harmonies going on in the middle. I'm not sure what was going on, but it was a little edgy. And in the last minute or two, as it gets those triple rhythms and double rhythms, and you get the idea, like in the late sonatas, that Beethoven is not in a hurry, and Bronfman is certainly not in a hurry. He's using rubato, using space, and just, it's wow.
Right on the money, Gary. The Bronfman's performance was very largo and almost on the back of the beat and suspending time. And he was stretching the time and stretching the phrases. And it was really effective. I mean, it was really stunning. And what Gary's speaking to, and we're going to take tonight a deep dive into the second movement, because it's such an extraordinary piece of music. And what's most extraordinary about it is that it's so spare and chromatic. It's so harmonically chromatic and tonal centers. He sort of touches on tonal centers occasionally, but then there are these motions where he's just so just crazily going through all these keys and diminished seventh chords and using tension and release, what's known as appoggiatura, where you have a non-chord note that resolves to a chordal note. So tension release, and he has that tension all over. And I have a quote from Donald Francis Tovey about this movement, and he says that the details of phrasing and tone color have provided with extraordinary precision by Beethoven himself. And if you simply make sure that you are playing what is written, you will go far to realize the tragic power that makes this movement a landmark in music history. Do not try to understand before you do as Beethoven bids. The people who understand great music beforehand will never see anything in it except a mirror of their own minds. The player who obeys orders faithfully will constantly be discovering their real meaning. So he's speaking to the specificity of Beethoven's markings in this movement. And we're going to go right into the score and take a look at what he's doing in two spots in this piece. So let's take a look. So I've done a pretty intensive harmonic analysis, and I don't want to go crazy over your heads, but basically this is in D minor. But I highlighted all of those notes that are not in the chords here. And it creates tension in the piece. Dee, da, da, dee, da, dee, dee, da, da, dee, da, da. It gives this tension and tension. So he's only in the root key in the first bar, and then he goes right to G minor, and then A major, D minor, A major, D minor, A major, D dominant 7, G minor, and then he goes to his diminished seventh chord. Great tension, great tension. and then eventually gets back to the tonic in D minor here. But look here, I circled these notes. Can anybody tell me about the relationship of those notes, what that is? Musicians? If I said it was
leading tone. Or
well, the C sharp, yes, but the leap I'm speaking to from the F. You've got
oh, it's
these,
a tritone.
exactly. So you've got these very jarring intervals that are going on in this music as he starts the piece. So he's got this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bars of sheer just chromatic writing. And then he hits D minor.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's not a tritone. I'm sorry, it's C sharp to F.
C sharp G, yeah.
Oh,
This
to
is the
G,
fourth,
yes, that's the tritone.
Exactly. Here's a tritone. So he starts this movement, and it's just completely and utterly just tense and moving and just searching for its home key. And then he finally gets to D minor here. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit more, and this is what Tovey is speaking of. You see these markings. He's got these crescendi, sforzando, crescendo, pianissimo, and RF. Does anybody know what RF is? Rinforzando, which is an emphatic sforzando. So he even is specific of the difference between a sforzando here and rinforzando here. Rinforzando, rinforzando. And then crescendo, and then down back to piano. So he's very specific about how this music is being expressed. And this is a very early sonata. As we talked about in the classical period, especially with Mozart's music, there's not much markings in the music. And here Beethoven is very specific about how he wants this expressed early on in Opus 10. It's really wonderful. So I wanted to play a little bit of it now so we can see what's happening in the first bit here. And we'll look at the music as we do it. So here it is. Tell me if you can't hear this. I tested it out beforehand, but shout if you can't hear this music. Here we go. wonderful. It's wonderful. So it's this hyperchromatic opening. He gets to the tune in D minor, and then he gets a touch chromatic before he returns to the basic minor, just in the first statement of the tune. It's wonderful, right?
Yeah.
It's absolutely wonderful. And you know, this, as I had said, the tragedy of this movement is it's indicative, as Gary had said, like you hear the basis of what happens later in the late sonatas. With this, you hear it right here, the depth, the sheer depth of emotion, right here in Opus 10, 1798. 1798, this was written. It's really, really wonderful. I wanted to go now toward the end of the movement and do the same thing. We'll take a look at the music, and I just want to show you what he's doing. And when I talk chromatically, we know what we're talking about chromatic, when it goes up in a scale and harmonically. You know, it's hard to say when some don't know harmony, but it's not a tonic dominant relationship. He's moving through keys that go up a scale chromatically, that one leads to the next. It's just like what Wagner did. And that was the basis of Wagner. And here it is in Beethoven. So let's go toward the end of this movement, and I'll show you what I mean. Oops, hold on 1 second. Sorry, I want to make sure that I'm sharing audio too, because we're going to listen to. So here we go toward the end of the piece. And he's chugging around D minor, G minor. See, all this is broken chords. And then he goes E flat minor. And then watch what he does here. I circled all the notes. He goes A with these diminished 7 chord, B flat, B natural, C, C sharp, D, E flat, E, F, G, G sharp, and then A. Right up the scale, just chromatically going up the scale and utilizing these diminished 7 chords, which are, you'll hear that it's a very tense sounding chord, a very intense sounding chord. And he's just going he's just working his way all the way here, A, just up a chromatic scale. It's so wonderful. And look what he does. He quickens the pace as the tension grows. So here you have a full bar in D minor, a full bar in G minor, a full bar in E flat minor. And then he halves it. He goes F sharp, E flat, B, F, and then he speeds it up even more. Then there's 3 per bar, and then 4 per bar. You see the progression? And then he slows it down before the cadence, and then boom. Do we all see that?
Mm-hmm.
He's moving metrically and harmonically, creating tension, getting faster and faster with the harmony, and then slows it up to its cadence. It's drama within the structure of the music. I know this is heady stuff. I'm sorry but this is what makes this music extraordinary. This moment right here. And we're gonna listen to it and we'll follow along just like he does. And I want you to listen to how he speeds up your ear with the tension that he builds as this music goes on. So here we go. Here's this clip starting from that bar. E minor. It's remarkable.
Derek, the other really cool thing that he does, you know, that entire section where you showed us, you know, how he in the bass line kind of goes up chromatically to build the tension, which is just kind of natural if you're used to this music and listening to it. And then when he gets to that peak in the right hand, he just comes all the way down stepwise and just, you know, so
Right.
you kind of resolve all of that tension and drama, which is seeing the music and listening to it is really fantastic.
Very good.
That's exactly right. It's a huge sweep. It goes up and that comes back down. And you see even rhythmically, he becomes more spare and sonically as he ends. This movement is so incredible. So incredible. And it was funny, the first time I heard Bronfman, this recording of it, I was like, ooh, that's slow. And then I was like, ooh, that's nice. Yeah, yeah. But you see, this is Beethoven, and this is very early on, and the technique. This you know, we spoke about this with Brahms about the foundation and the structural backing of this music and why it creates this incredible emotion and tension and release is just through this extraordinary craft. He speeds up da da dee da 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 dee da da. He even speeds up the figure in the right hand as he's moving fast, more quickly in the rhythm with the harmony. I mean, it's really stunning. That movement is it could be written in the late period. That movement. It's really,
You know,
really
Derek,
stunning.
you bring a lot of understanding, a depth of understanding to it when you do that. I agree with what Brian said. It's terrific to listen to it and watch and sit and follow along with the music as closely as that. But after all is said and done, one stands astounded that he could have written this. It's just genius beyond genius.
And as I had said with Brahms, the same goes true. You know, the structure doesn't get in the way of the emotion. It's just merely a tool to express himself. You don't know what's happening, really. The average listener, you know, doesn't get what's going on here. But what he's doing to create this tension and emotion is just breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking. Any other thoughts about this before we move on from that piece?
Even if you don't know what he's doing structurally and harmonically and musical theory, you feel it. You get the emotional bang and tension and feeling, but it doesn't add to it to know.
You know, it's funny, William. You know, I'm always, and I'd said this in previous shows, the best thing you can do as a listener is to just shut everything off and just open yourself up to the emotion of the music, the emotionality of the music. And don't, you know, read the program note right off the bat to find understanding in the music. Listen, feel what the composer is saying, and then go back and reference, and then listen again and go back and forth. But allow yourself to just sit back and, okay, what's happening in this music? What is he trying to tell me? And this is just this sorrowful, just all of this tension and release and tension and release. It's so sorrowful and tragic, this movement.
And it all hangs together. Even though there's so many keys and so much going on, it still sounds like one, you know, and trying to write that, I can't imagine.
Again, that's why I'm spending 3 months on the guy.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah.
You know, we're so, you know, it's lucky. You know, it's funny when you listen to the piano sonatas, everybody pulls the Pathetique and the Appassionata.
Right, the usual.
You know, 109, 110, 111,
Right.
Hammerklavier. Look at this little Opus 10 number 3, and listen to what this man is expressing in this early sonata. It's perhaps the most played of his early sets of sonatas, but it's still not played as much as the middle and late sonatas.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It's interesting in the series history, going back, you know, as I said, I go back about 25 years. Of the Opus 10 sonatas, only this one has been played. We've not had the first or the second sonata on the series,
Wow.
which I found interesting. The first and second sonatas have a lot of humor in them. They're actually very lighthearted and humorous. And, you know, I don't want to say they're as Haydn-esque as the Opus 2 sonatas, but they do have that. They're very firmly rooted in the classical period. But then you get this thing comes in with this movement, and you know, Haydn couldn't write that movement.
No. Very odd.
And we're so used to Brahms playing with, you know, with so much muscularity and brio, and then to listen to him just pull back and play the second movement with just, it's just heartbreaking. It's just, there's so much pathos in there.
Yeah, I agree. Wonderful performance.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Opus 18, number 3. I am not going to spend near as much time on Opus 18, number 3.
Okay.
But so just since we've done 18, number 1, we've looked at 18, number 3 was the first composed, as I had said, of the set. Again, the ordering of the set in order of that the pieces were composed was number 3, 1, 2, 5, 4, 6. And Schopenzig, the violinist in his quartet, he had recommended Beethoven change the order, and that's why the order is as such. So this piece was the very, very first string quartet that Beethoven wrote. And again, this set was commissioned and patronized by Prince Lobkowitz, very prominent patron, had palaces all over Europe, and most especially in Prague and Vienna. And again, he spent a very long time on these quartets, as we had discussed earlier in shows, because Haydn was lurking about, and he really wanted to hone these quartets as much as he possibly could before publishing them. But I wanted to take a look at the last movement, because it sort of flies by, this last movement. And I'm going to play, literally, if I can do this without messing up too much, essentially almost 7 seconds. We're just going to play the opening of the last movement, and I want you to tell me what the meter is for those musicians out there. Okay? And tell me what he's doing. Do that and that. Here we go.
I have no idea.
Another one? Here we go. Here we go. One more time. It's very short.
You did something that threw me out. Yeah.
12/8.
It sounds like it could be.
It sounds like 12/8, but perhaps.
Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Right?
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But listen a little more closely. So we got ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Listen a little more closely. One more time. What's going on there?
Through your screen, I think.
I didn't hear it.
We couldn't hear it.
You couldn't hear it. Well, that's terrible. Let's try it one more time. Sorry, I didn't share it. That's why you didn't hear it. Here we go. Sorry.
We added a second instrument. Did he?
He added what? One more time. I want you to hear the rhythm.
Kind of changed halfway through.
Mhm.
It's like he dropped something out. It's like it's
Close. Close.
you tell
Marty.
you, I'm
Very
the
close.
in the crowd. It's like it's slower. It doesn't have as many notes.
Actually, it's
How do you say that?
there's one extra note.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
One more time. It's a good exercise. Listen to the extra eighth note.
Right.
Do you hear it?
Those are 8 notes.
See it, but
Da 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 da.
yeah.
There's an extra eighth note in there.
I see it in the score, but how does that affect the meter?
Well, here's what we're gonna do, John. We're gonna show you the score now. So
Oh, 6/8.
Where?
So
See-
6/8. Oh yeah.
Oh,
So
you see what he's doing?
There.
Yeah, I think 6/8.
Greg, what's he doing?
Well, he starts in the middle of the. He starts at the end of the. He starts in the middle of the.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, that's what he does. He
Yeah.
starts
So-
the phrase in the middle of the measure.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So when he starts, this sounds like a downbeat.
and it's not.
Da 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 da.
Yeah,
And that's where you get the extra eighth note in here.
yeah.
Very clever.
Da 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 da.
Yeah.
Da 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 da.
Da 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 da. But you don't play it like that. Da 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 da.
But you're,
Da 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 da.
Different phrasing.
you don't know what you're really hearing.
Exactly. So if you were to emphasize the downbeat, the strong beats, you would go da 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 da. This is da 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 da. Yeah. Da
Mhm.
da 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 da.
Yeah.
How does he
Pretty
indicate-
cool, right?
Yeah,
So he's using, as we looked at Haydn and his quartets and how he messes with your ear and the meter. This is what he does it right off the bat in his very first quartet. He's just messing with you right from the start of the presto.
yeah.
And it's marvelous. And I think we want to hear this movement again. I have the whole clip of the movement, and let's just keep that in mind as to how he messes. And I only played you that first little bit because he then gets you back on track after those two statements of that. And I didn't want you to experience getting, feeling the beat naturally. So that's why I cut it off when I did. So let's listen to this last movement one more time. It goes by very quickly, but it's so marvelous. And I want you to especially listen to the ending. And you tell me about the ending. So let's do this. Here we go.
Amazing.
It's great, huh?
Mm.
Really wonderful. I wanted to take a look at the end of the movement. So he ends in a whisper. Now, we spoke a little bit about that last week, but interestingly enough, he actually pulled it from another source. So, sorry, let me get you down to the end of the movement.
Mm-hmm.
So here we have the end of the movement. He ends nice and big here in fortissimo, and then here just goes piano, uses some material, and then dies away to pianissimo here. And we spoke about Beethoven when he was preparing to write the Opus 18 quartets, that he hand copied Haydn quartets from Opus 20. Do we remember that when we talked about that? Well, he also copied Mozart's 464 quartet, K464. And here's the end of that. And wouldn't you know it, he ends nice and big in forte here, and then has this little coda tacked on that ends pianissimo. Directly pulled from Mozart, that he would end the first string quartet he would ever write. So, and that goes back to Gary's comment, Stravinsky's quote about stealing from other composers. You know, really, really great stuff. Any thoughts about Opus 18, number 3? I wanted to play briefly, since we're exiting his early period, a work, just a movement of a work that was perhaps one of his most popular pieces during his lifetime that he had written. Does anybody know what that work is?
Talk about the septet?
That is the septet, John Felton. So his septet for strings and winds, when he wrote it, it's Opus 20. So directly after these quartets, it just was an instant sensation. So much so that his publisher asked for a transcription immediately from him. So he transcribed the septet for clarinet, cello, and piano, and gave it its own opus number, Opus 38 of Beethoven. And over the years, Beethoven would grow to hate this piece because it was so popular that it overshadowed his other music. And it really irritated him because he didn't think that it was like one of his best works. So I wanted to play some of the, I actually have a quote, I'm sorry, I have a quote from Carl Czerny speaking to that. He says, he could not endure his septet and grew angry because of the universal applause that it received. It's in 6 movements, which is very indicative of a serenade. And some of, we talked about the wind serenades and divertimenti of the time. And it's actually directly fashioned after Mozart's divertimento K563 for string trio. Do we know that piece? It's an enormous work, enormous work. I think it's about 45 minutes long, 45 or 50 minutes long. And it's in 6 movements. And these 6 movements in the septet directly correlate to the same movement structure as the divertimento of Mozart's 563. So here again, Beethoven pulling from the past in order to make his way early in his career. But I wanted to play actually play a video, YouTube video of the Beethoven septet, of the last movement of the septet, which is very charming and very brief. And it's a group with Janine Janssen. The violist is Dana Zmetsov. The cellist is Jens Peter Meintz. The bass player is Stacy Watton. The clarinetist is Martin Frust, one of the best clarinetists in the world. Horn is Jesper de Waal, and the bassoonist is Frederick Ekdahl. So this is essentially this is Janine Janssen's festival in the Netherlands. So here we go. Where is it? Hold on once.
We've never seen this one somewhere.
We'll have to look out. We haven't seen it.
Oh, here it is. Okay, sorry, I lost. Here it is. Hold on. Sorry, one more time. Optimize for video. Here we go. Do we know that piece? Sorry, I had to mute everybody because there was some some noise. Did you enjoy that?
Let's see, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the piece that you said he was so popular, he made a 3-instrument, a trio transcription?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And you see, it's just an ebullient light. It's a very light piece, and it has the quality of a serenade, you know, to be played at a party.
Yeah.
So he began to resent it because it was so popular, and that he thought it overshadowed his more serious music.
If I'd heard that without knowing that it was Beethoven, I would never have guessed that it was Beethoven.
Yeah.
Actually, it just it was nice and light. There was no, and no wonder it was popular. You didn't have to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very charming work. It's sort of, you know, fallen out of favor a bit. It's not done very often. The Schubert octet is done far more than this piece. And this piece is almost as substantial. This piece is about 40 minutes long, and the Schubert octet's about 50 to 55 minutes long. But a wonderful, charming work, a really, really marvelous work. Any other thoughts before we leave Beethoven's early period? Thank you. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
All right.
Thanks, Derek.
Really appreciate it. No, thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next week. And we begin his middle period next week. And I wish I remember what was on the program.
No matter what it is, it'll be interesting.
Yes, go to the website, check it out.
Right.
Don't rely on my brain.
Good night.
All right, have a good night, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Derek.
Thank you.
I need to stand up, so get us out of there.
Yes, you do.